Hello everyone and welcome along to sadly the final round of the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup virtual edition for 2020. The first time we've done the virtual edition of this Supercup for the real world drivers because of the world situation that we're in, and you'll be able to see all of these real world drivers racing in the real world in the second half of 2020. But for the moment, they've had to be battling in the virtual world for the last couple of weeks. And what entertainment we have seen. On iRacing, it looks stunning and the racing has been frenetic. And where better to finish than a place where the championship tends to come to a climax, if not finish, in Monza. Normally in September, of course, in the real world. And we are racing as the final round this Autodromo Internazionale di Monza. Good weather forecast for the day, and it is all about riding the curbs to get the best out of this track. But riding them not too much, otherwise you end up getting penalties. We'll talk a lot more about the technicalities of iRacing. Myself, Ben Kosenjuris, and expert real world and virtual world driver Jan Seifert. Jan, looking forward to this one?
Yeah, absolutely looking forward. Again, on your side here at the high-speed track of Monza in Italy. And I'm very much looking forward, first of all, to the qualifying, as we see, I think, a lot of slipstream battles, and then as well in the race.
Yeah, talk about slipstream. This place absolutely vital to get a slipstream. And iRacing tends to reward those that get into a slipstream as well. It does seem to be almost emphasize the slipstream effect over the real world.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we are driving here with the real drivers, the real teams, and that means we have at least 2 cars per team, so they can help each other. But you have to be on about the same level to help each other. So once your teammate is not fast enough, you maybe will not have the advantage of the slipstream on the straights, as we can see here.
We'll talk more about the technicalities of making a fast lap around Monza, but it has been a 4-round championship. This is the 4th round, and here are our championship standings so far. Aykan Guven leads the championship by just 2 points over Larry ten Voorde and has 1 extra win over Larry. Those two basically shared wins in Barcelona and Silverstone, but Spa, we had a bit of contact and we saw a little bit of controversy, which actually allowed Dylan Pereira to take a victory in race 1 and kind of cement himself in 3rd position. Joey Mawson, Jackson Evans, our Porsche rookie for this year, and Nick Tandy, equal 5th position. Expect him to have a good one. He comes off the back of victory in the virtual IMSA series on Thursday afternoon for Porsche, their first victory in that, which of course also takes place on iRacing. Leon Köhler is the best of our rookies. Jesse Van Kuijke in 8th. Lawrence Van Thor has been improving more and more as we've had this series. And Max van Spritteren really should be further up. He's been unlucky with traffic. He's been unlucky with contacts. And it therefore means a bit further down at the back of the field, we've got our Team Australia drivers, Mark Sinney and Stephen Grove. We didn't see Philippe Sager last time out. That was because he picked up too many penalty points, couldn't qualify, therefore decided not to race. Clement Mathieu and Roar Linland round out our 5 Pro-Am drivers. And there is the rookies. Leon Köhler, I think, has had 1 or 2. Let me just check on my points. Just been outside the podium, but he has managed to pick up a 4th position a couple of times. Max van Spritteren, as I said, I think really could be ahead of Leon Köhler in terms of the championship, but he had some big collisions that took him out and caused damage. Jaden Conright has been ever improving. Pontus Fredriksson, we haven't seen much of. Marvin Klein, Robin Hansen, and the rest of our rookies. In the real world, rookies they are, not necessarily rookies in iRacing. GP Team Elite are the championship leaders, thanks to Larry ten Voorde, Martine by Almeras, with all the points scored by their only driver, Aykan Guven. BRWT Lechner Racing, they should have Michael Ammermuller, the champion from the real world, but he's struggled to get into this virtual world, so we haven't actually seen him participate. He sits, so his team sit in 3rd spot, thanks mostly to Dylan Pereira's efforts. And then Fach Auto Tech is Joey Mawson's team with Dynamic Motorsport running Jaden Conwright, the rookie, and Marius Nakin as well.
Yeah, so as you say, it's very close together, all together. So I'm very much looking forward to see the guys battling again, because of a little mistake, we have that little gap between Ten Voorde and Guven. Otherwise, they would be on the same points, and so it's a decider in the last 2 rounds we see here at Monza.
As I say, we have 3 wins for Ayça'yın Guven, but only 2 wins for Larry Ten Voorde. So even if they equal on points, it will go to Guven, who effectively is known in the virtual world as an alien, isn't he? He is quite spectacular when it comes to his iRacing and his iRating.
For sure, he is. So iRating, for those who are with us for the first time, so you get a specific number. The more races you drive, the more races you win or be successful. And his number is so high, he could be a pro sim racer in this world as well. So he's very much into that simulation in iRacing, but also all the others, they practice quite a lot. So, I mean, in public you see the iRacing or iRating, but you can also practice yourself or drive in so-called hosted sessions, and there you cannot race your iRating. But all these drivers driving here up in the front, they are very much professional in both in the real world and also in the simulation.
So just a reminder then, we're just watching practice finishing in the next couple of moments. We'll go into a 15-minute qualifying session, and then we have 2 races for you, each around 25 minutes long. And there is a reverse grid in there, isn't there? Is there a reverse grid?
No, it's so you're busy as well. You're busy as well in the sim racing world, commentating so much race or so many races as I do. But we have the same order, the starting order, as we have the result of race number 1. So the result of race number 1 will be the starting grid of race number 2.
Thank you. Porsche Community Legends I was throwing myself back to, which is full reverse grid on Tuesday nights. Tune into the Porsche channels for that one. Interestingly, also, do go on to the Porsche's Instagram page if you want to vote for how the real-world drivers and the virtual counterparts will have their final. You can vote for which track and car combination they will be doing that on Tuesday night. So do get on board with that. Some more offerings from Porsche. Big congratulations also. Some more church notices for you. As I've already said, actually, Nick Tandy taking victory in the last race of the IMSA championship at Road America. That was on Thursday evening. Porsche dominated that. Here is Nick Tandy in not a dissimilar car, slightly different to what he ran there, but not massively dissimilar. And actually Ayça'yın Guven ran well with him, 1-2 for most of the race, but then got taken out by a back marker. So pat on the back for that one, and bigger pat on the back for me anyway, that Porsche are the first manufacturer to enter into the virtual Le Mans 24 hours. So whilst we did see a bit of bad news with them in the real world having to pull some of their cars out of the Le Mans 24 hours in September due to the cluster of the calendars and not being able to race basically at Le Mans and then get straight back to IMSA for the week after, they have entered 4 cars into the Le Mans 24 hours virtual edition. And this isn't something run by a gaming platform. This is run by the ACO. This is run by the people who run Le Mans, and therefore making history in both having the event, but then Porsche getting so involved.
Yeah, I mean, Porsche is since a long time already doing so much stuff in the sim racing world, and I mean, for me it's a logical step for them to go in there. But yeah, it's good news. It's good news to see that, and I hope that many others will follow.
And of course, it is an esports team. You do have to have some real-world drivers, but they'll also be looking at these kind of races to go, right, who else can we put in our team? Who can we persuade to join our esports team to fly the flag for Porsche? Because, they will have the odd works driver. Aychan Guven is a junior. Nick Tandy is obviously a works driver. Lawrence Van Thor has been showing well in the IMSA series as well for Porsche. But they will be looking at the likes of Jackson Evans. They will be looking at Larry Ten Voorde, who's entered into this championship but isn't necessarily backed by Porsche, and think, well, actually, yeah, you'd be a very good bet for our esports team.
Yeah, sure. They need the pros in this category as well, because I mean it's a different world. You have to see it's two worlds. So the sim racing world, I mean you try with the simulation, with the weather, with simulating the track, the cars, and so on. You try to be as close as you can to the real world, but in the end, it's a sim racing world. So, and it's a little bit different, but in this kind of world of sim racing, it's equal for everybody, and then you need the pros in that. And I'm very much looking forward to see guys also from here, from the Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup Virtual Edition, participating in Le Mans probably.
Absolutely. So there is this small matter, though, of getting this championship finished, and I'm a bit sad that we're still in May and finishing a championship already, but that was the way that it was scheduled, and maybe we'll get some kind of super final, I don't know. But either way, this is the final round of the championship. Larry Ten Voorde, here he is 2 points behind Aychan Guven at the head of our field. It has been those two fighting it out for the whole of the championship. In Barcelona, Ten Voorde took the victory in race 1, Guven took the victory in race 2. Then we moved on to Silverstone, and Guven took race 1, Ten Voorde took race 2. If you weren't following us, Spa race 1 was where the whole thing shook up, because the two of them got together, they went off track. I believe one of them, I can't remember if it was Guven or Ten Voorde, gave back the position to the other, which put them down the field. And basically there was such a gap that it allowed Dylan Pereira to take victory, and Larry Ten Voorde to only finish in second, with Guven finishing in third. And that then meant that the gap between the drivers slightly compromised the championship fight for Larry Ten Voorde. Guven beat Ten Voorde again in the final race, having come through, well, not really much traffic. They started second and third, so they had to get past Dylan Pereira. Those are the two guys then to watch for the championship. Here is the colours of Aychan Guven to watch out for. The Martiner by Almeras, white and green machine in comparison to the white and yellow machine of Larry Ten Voorde. We don't really expect, Jan, to see anybody else really step up and fight with them, do we?
I mean, performance-wise, I see them in the front for sure. But as you say, as they have to fight for the championship, I mean, fighting is always making you slower. And that's maybe the chance for all the others, like Pereira, Moss, and Köhler. He did well in the past races as well. So I mean, I see a chance. And also, we were talking about that as well, because of the slipstream. I mean, once you're in front, doesn't mean you stay in front, because in Monza you have chances to overtake. For example, turn number 1 or first chicane we see here with Aychan Guven. There are possibilities to change places, and so sure, performance-wise they will be in front, but I think we will see nice fights as well.
Another thing that's quite interesting is watching in practice how much they're taking the curbs here. Curbs and track limits are something that iRacing as a platform police. And if you do run just a little bit off track, and I've been running Monza quite a lot recently for an upcoming endurance race I'm participating in, and you get pinged for track limits all the time. But I wonder whether in this they've done something with those track limits, the automatic ones, to get rid of them.
Yes, sure. I mean, you can adjust the incident points, and that's what Porsche have done. And what is most important is different to the real world is the measurement is the center of the car, and so therefore it's a little bit different. Sometimes you see cars running a little more wide, and but we will talk about that. I think because we will see quite a lot of this.
David Fuminelli is our guest driver for this week. Porsche Carrera Cup Italy competitor, and also has been representing over in a different champion, the ASO2 as well. Welcome along to Monza then. We are about to go qualifying for the final round of this virtual edition of the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup, beautifully rendered here in iRacing. The identical cup cars of, what have we got grid-wise, 29 drivers. And there is a look at the grid and weather conditions. Lots of sun, which will be providing lots of grip for the cars. No, don't worry about the rain, and moisture in the air will make these cars run absolutely perfectly. Interestingly, they are running a different setup to the way that the cars were set up at the other rounds. Barcelona's setup was only slightly adjusted to Silverstone's. Silverstone's setup was then exactly the same as Spa's, but because of the character of this track, the setup for these cars is fixed for all drivers, but different to what they've experienced before, Jan Seifert.
Yes, so in Monza, we have a high-speed track, and so therefore Porsche adjusted the setup, which is, as you say, equal for everybody. And so that's the difference between these settings. Otherwise, in car, the drivers can adjust brake balance, for example. So that's the only thing you can do. So as it is in the real world, but in the real world for sure you can adjust in the pits or between the sessions. You can adjust anything else on the car, but here, to make it equal and to make it more efficient for everybody, they decided to keep the setting equal for everybody.
Let's get into qualifying then, and track limits, always a bit of a tricky one around Monza. Lots of curbs to ride. We've got about 15 minutes of a qualifying session, but they can lose their laps, Jan Seifert, if they exceed track limits. And so it'll be key to get a clean lap in. Perhaps not necessarily the fastest one, but just something a banker to get onto the leaderboard.
I mean, track limits is in the real world a big topic, but in sim racing, I would say it's even more, because the measurement it's made by a computer and the algorithm, so you cannot cheat anyhow. And so the center of the car will be the measurement for track limits and so-called off tracks, which is a track limit called in iRacing, and so. There are some places where you really can use the curbs quite much, but in other places you really have to be careful, and we will see that. For example, here you can use the curb on the left-hand side, but once you go over the curb too much, you get the so-called off-track, and in qualifying, as you say, your lap time will be cancelled, and that's the problem. The system itself will cancel your lap time, and so you have to go for another try in the remaining time.
Look out for teams ganging up with each other to help slipstreams. You can see the GP Elite boys all running together. I noticed that Larry Ten Voorde was running a private session last night and doing some testing for himself. So I expect all of those cars to run together. There's a car off at the back of the field there. I think that might have been Yuka Honkavori who had spun. The first car out there, look, they're all backing up. This is a classic Monza thing. We saw this with the Formula 1 cars a couple of years ago. Dylan Pereira does not want to be the first car and provide a slipstream to everybody else. So he's slowing down, trying to allow Aychan Guven to pass. But of course, Guven doesn't want to do it. Also, Guven doesn't have a teammate. So somebody else has said, stop buggering about, I'm off. Who is that? Who's the first car?
Pile. It was Pile.
Yeah. Well, that's a classic Pile thing to do, isn't it? Come on, zut alors, allez. Right, let's go on board with Aychan Guven. Let's see how you get around this track fast. This is a lesson to me as much as anybody else, because I'm racing here next weekend for a full 12 hours. Probably not good to take a qualifying lap of a Porsche Supercup as an example, but either way, down to the first corner, the first chicane, hard on the brakes. Oh, you should be doing this. You should be doing this, yeah, not me.
Hard on the brakes, second gear if you want to have a smooth exit, or first gear, even though when you have like that, and then you have to be careful with wheel spin. Then you go flat out to the right kink here into second chicane. You try to keep the car on the right hand side, as you see Guven is doing. Then brake right before the bridge, down into second gear again, using the curbs on the left and right hand side. And you see the cars jumping there quite a lot. Use the curb on the left hand as well. Then into these two right turns here, so-called Lesmo 1. That's this one, and Lesmo 2, which is the more important here, because you need to carry all the speed out of the corner here onto the long straight. And now Ferreira slows down to not give any slipstream down the straight here into one of my favorite chicanes, so-called the Variante Ascari. So you go in left here, so you can really push in there. Now you have to position the car to have a good exit for another long straight, typical for Monza. Before we go into the last turn, the so-called Parabolica, a very long right turn which opens in the end, so that you can use track width quite a lot. You go in here, and now you go already on power and use whole track width to the outside. You have to be careful with track limits. Only 2 wheels off track there are allowed, and then we are back at the start and finish. So that's the lap at Monza, and Guven, he did his first lap and already made it up to the top of the standings with a 150.202.
And nobody anywhere near getting close to that. Even Larry ten Voorde, who comes across the line as the second car in a little train of GP Elite machines, ten Voorde's time is nowhere. In fact, he may have had an off track, I think, because he's not there. He's actually pulled out of the slipstream, and I think he's going to reset. In fact, all of those cars are resetting. Here's Richard Lietz. I noticed that he was out on the track quite late. Nick Tandy is second at the moment. Tandy's time 3/10 slower than Ayhancan Guven, and I've got a chance. Excitedly, I've got a chance to look at split times on my timing screen and different colours like I'm used to, so I can see who's fast and who's slow. Larry ten Voorde, 1.1 seconds down. No, actually didn't set a lap time, so it was disallowed. In fact, only half the field managed a lap time, 14 cars. The rest of them may well have run off track, and that would have meant they did not get a time. All the GP Elite cars as part of that, so they're going to have to go again. Nick Tandy second in the queue of cars with Ayhancan Guven leading, and it shows, doesn't it? You make all this effort to try and get a slipstream, and then actually without one you still go faster. So I don't think Guven's going to finish this lap. Is it going to be a better lap time? Yes, it is. He goes nearly into the 49s. Dylan Pereira, in third in the queue, goes faster than Tandy. And then we've got Joey Mawson and Lawrence Van Thor up in fifth spot.
Yeah, so we saw these off-tracks quite a lot in Spa, which is also difficult in off-tracks, and with a lot of cars having no time in the end of the qualifying. So here, but you know, you can spend quite a lot of time in getting slipstream, but once you miss to do a time, then you're gone. So you really have to concentrate on set a lap time, and then maybe try to work with slipstream. So let's see if ten Voorde can do a lap now in the slipstream of his teammate, and to go in front there too, because Guven is doing his job. So he has to be in front, and he is in front.
Jesse Van Kuijke is the first of the Team Elite cars, the second Larry ten Voorde, and you saw that Larry just backed off through the Parabolica to give himself a little bit of space, but look how much better he is, even under braking into the first turn. Oh, third car of that team spears off at the first chicane, so makes a mistake. That would have been Matt Splitteren here on board with Larry ten Voorde. No time on the board as yet, as we said, with track limits being an issue. Let's see if he can keep the car on track here. He's going to be held up by Jesse Van Kuijke before he's really going to have the chance to take advantage of the slipstream.
I mean, they are in a voice chat together, I guess, because that's what you do in sim racing. So they talk to each other, different to the real world. In real world, you cannot talk to your teammate in front of you, but here you can. And so I think Larry is already talking to Jesse and telling him, okay, I will use your slipstream now before Ascari, and I think he will let him pass before Variante Ascari to get the slipstream here. And you see, Van Koik is going to the left, and now it's traffic. So, and they will not help 10-4, but they did. And now we have, I think, Simona De Silvestro, one of our female drivers, in front, and she's giving 10-4 now another slipstream, but that doesn't help.
If you take too much of that curve on the left-hand side, it can throw you miles in the air, as I have found already. So once again, halfway through the session, they're trying almost to be too clever here. This is what it looked like from the outside of the car. It just got a little slide on through there. It didn't take much air, but enough to lift those front wheels off the ground, and then no steering at all.
You can yeah, that's what happened there. You can use the track with quite a lot in this chicane, but if you use it too much, it's also an off track. And now they have to start again, and we only have under 6 minutes left. So you know, they don't have a time, or the 10-4 has no time at the moment, so he's nowhere.
And Jesse Van Koyke is one of the slowest out on track. So by pulling over and letting him through, he's compromised his own lap so much that he sits down in 24th position. So this is where all of a sudden we're going, I think Team Orders is actually compromising you guys too much.
Yeah, sure. They are I think struggling now with their strategy. And now Gubin is quite clever. Look at him. He slowed down these two guys before in front of the second chicane.
Now he's not on a lap. He's just come out the pits, and he does quickly get out the way of Larry Tenvoorde. There he is. So Tenvoorde now doesn't have any slipstream, so he's going to have to do it himself. I think the other back markers ahead will soon be getting out the way. That is, if memory serves, Christian Engelhardt, I think, in the ZF car. And there, now Guven has picked up the pace, and now he's sitting in the slipstream of Larry Tenvoorde. By the time he'll be able to take advantage only of the start-finishing straight, because you can guarantee if this lap works out, Larry Tenvoorde is going to pull out of this one. But to me, that front end looks a little damaged, doesn't it, Jan?
Yes, it is slightly damaged. In the real world, you have the coolers right there, which is quite difficult once you damage them. But here, you also lose a little bit of drag, or you have little problems once you damage your car slightly. And then now let's see, Tenvoorde is using all the drag there and slowing down immediately, as you say. But whoa! Under 150, he jumped to position 1.
Larry Tenvoorde on the provisional pole with 4 minutes remaining. He's now going to go and find his teammate and give Jesse Van Koyke a help, because actually it won't be enough. If these two share the wins like they did at the first 2 rounds of our championship, Aycan Guven will win by 2 points. So it is not enough. GP Elite team need to basically get in the mix. So Larry Tenvoorde needs to go and find Jesse Van Koyke, who is down and last at the moment in the timings. Give that massive slipstream to him. Say thanks very much for the help. You need to now get up into the mix of things so that we can take points away from Guven, which will then give Larry Tenvoorde more of a chance. The only other way is Tenvoorde wins both of these races here today, and that is the only other way he is going to take victory. But Guven has been on this the whole time. Racing in IMSA on Thursday night, he is pretty much consistently on the iRacing platform, getting himself practice. And I was speaking to Earl Bamber on our Community Legends thing, another Porsche Works driver. He's been putting in 6 to 7 hours a day to get himself up to speed, and he was still only something like 21st position on the IMSA race. His first race, but really not enough. Aycan Guven, fastest in the second sector and in the fourth sector of the lap, but gave away, last time through, gave away a 10.5 in the last sector of the lap. This could well be Guven taking provisional pole again. Here he comes to the line. Is he going to be under the 50s? He is under the 50s. And just waiting for the graphics to update. He goes up into second position and by 0.1 of a second. So really, really healthy. 2 minutes remaining. He could go again. He's not going to have the slipstream. And what is Larry ten Voorde doing? There are no purple sectors on my timing screen to show that Larry ten Voorde is doing a good job. Jesse Van Kuijken is 5 seconds off the pace at the very tail of the field. And Jesse's been up there, you know. He should be in the mix of things.
Yeah, correct. I mean, he's struggling. You see, he's trying by himself mainly. And you need the slipstream. We saw that. So now it's hard for him to get another lap and find a teammate. Let's see when he finished this lap. So now I think it's Tandy who made it into the slipstream of Van Kuijken to maybe put another lap into the asphalt of Monza. But now Van Kuijken couldn't. No, it didn't count. So maybe he had the off track, and he has to push. He really has to push for this lap. Otherwise, he will start in the back of the field.
Yeah, he is at the tail of the field. There were no green sectors through that last lap. Here's Larry ten Voorde. Is he going faster? Doesn't look like it to me. It doesn't look like a very good lap from him. So I'm not sure we're going to see an improvement. I noticed that Nick Tandy, I think, was trying to get Simona de Silvestro's slipstream, but she ran deep. It wasn't her, because that's her there. So it was somebody else. But they ran deep into the last turn. Maybe it was Lawrence Fanthor. But either way, he had to settle for Jesse Van Kuijken's slipstream instead. Larry ten Voorde, see, you can going super wide through the Parabolica. This isn't the end of a lap. Ayçan Guven is in the pit lane, so he has decided he can't do anything extra. And Larry ten Voorde will get an extra lap here. So this is his last chance. He's got no friends to play with. He's going to have to do it all alone. No slipstream. What can he do?
I think once you do a good lap, it's not enough without slipstream. But he went back to the pits because I think it makes no sense for him. So I think it's.
So qualifying is finished. He didn't get a chance to finish that lap, and therefore this is the grid. Ayçan Guven and Larry ten Voorde on the front row of the field. Dylan Pereira shares row 2 with Nick Tandy. Then it's Leon Köhler, our best rookie, and Jackson Evans on row 3. Joey Mawson and Lawrence Fanthor, row 4, just under a second off the pace. Max van Splutteren, P9 for GP Team Elite and the Rookies Championship, alongside fellow rookie Jaden Conright. Christian Engelhardt up at 11th, with Jukka Honkavori in 12th spot. Then it's Sven Muller, Jordan Love, Richard Leitz 15th, and David Fumanelli, Carrera Cup Italy guest for the day. Patrick Pilet in 7th, Simona de Silvestro 8th, Jaap van Lagen improving in 9th, then Jean-Baptiste Simenauer in 20th position. I said 9th, I meant 19th. Julien Andelea 21st, Fabien Vulven 22nd, Roar Linland 23rd, Clement Mathieu in 24th position. Mark Sinny, Mathieu Lorena, Pontus Frederiksen and Jesse Van Kuijken. Not last, Marius Nakin last, no time for him. But that is a disaster for Jesse, a total disaster. We'll have to watch how he gets through the field in the coming 25-minute race. Cars are lined up. As usual, a stunning array of Carrera Cup cars, and we're racing already. Van Guven covers the inside line, and already Larry ten Voorde trying to go down the inside. He'll know that there is an overlap. He can't be forcing him onto the grass. He keeps his foot in. There's contact twice, even before they get to the first corner. Dylan Pereira's trying to try and go round the outside, but there is the intention already set by Guven. He has laid down his aggressiveness. I'm going to be this aggressive for the next 50 minutes. Towards the second turn, and already having to defend. Guven goes to the inside, that puts ten Voorde to the outside. Ten Voorde knows he needs to win both of these races realistically to have a chance, unless there's collisions between the two. And a great sight as the Carrera Cup cars bounce their way through the chicanes. Something you don't risk doing when you're really racing on iRacing because of the track limits. But we've taken those off for this, and that allows these guys to be more free with the curbs, bounce across them, and not risk getting slow down penalties. Oh, Christian Engelhardt off in the background there. And he'd done quite well. He's up into 15th spot, so that's a shame. And another car facing the wrong direction, and that may be Yuka Hongori. Yes, it is. So he gets back underway again. This is what happened.
Into Lesmo 2, Hongori tries to find the gap. He made it through, but then he spun and touched Engelhardt just a little bit to send him into the gravel.
Engelhardt getting back onto track, I think, without contact with the wall, although he does have a little bit of damage on the front end. So he has dropped down to, I think it says 15th position on my timing screen, but that might not be correct. Okay, so the slipstream is going to be a huge factor here, and I think it will allow Dylan Pereira and Nick Tandy to stick with these guys. Tandy in the slipstream with Pereira for that third spot right now, as Guven has to go super defensive on Larry ten Voorde. He is going to be aggressive in this race. He puts him to the outside, then starts to squeeze him towards the grass. Pereira much, much better through the chicane because he wasn't compromised and got right onto the tail of Larry ten Voorde. So maybe ten Voorde will have to worry about what's happening behind as well.
I mean, he's in the sandwich because Pereira is also very strong. He's good in sim racing, while David Fumanelli, our guest driver from the Porsche Carrera Cup Italy, struggling a little bit in the first chicane. He got a little kiss from Simona De Silvestro, I would say.
Oh, it's nice, isn't it? That's very nice
welcome
thing to have.
It's a welcome.
And to be fair, he did lose it, I think, all on his own. She just helped him round. It looked as though the rear end had already broken away even before she gave him a touch. So at the front of the field again, and I think this is going to be how it is for the whole of the race. Larry ten Voorde's got a much better run through the second Lesmo, and he's going to try and go all the way around the outside of the Ascari. He has done it. He's into the lead even before the turn.
Whoa! I mean, for a professional racing driver, that's the worst thing which can happen to get overtaken on the outside. I mean, it was in front of the Variante Ascari, but now we will see the whole, as you say, the whole race. We will see these fights.
And I don't think, Jan, it's that sensible to be overly aggressive, because by being overly aggressive, you're compromising your speed, and you're going to keep Dylan Pereira and Nick Tandy in the game here. I think if I was Ayhan Guven, I'd let the passes go and go cleanly, so you don't lose too much speed.
That would be your thinking, but not.
Is this not a good idea, Jan?
No, it's not. It's not him. He's fighting. He's a fighter, and he will fight the next 21 minutes, every single corner and every straight. You will see.
So Jesse van Koike, Pontus Fredriksson and Mark Sinney all are in pit lane, sadly. Mathieu Lorena at the tail of the field. Sven Muller also quite far back. But just look how compressed this field is. This is not like what we saw in the other races where the front two have got away. Dylan Pereira has got way, way better in this car on this platform over the last couple of weeks. Nick Tandy is back up into a really good rhythm of things as well. And even Leon Curlo and Joey Mawson are still part of this fight. They're still part of the fun. And I just feel like the guys at the front need to not fight too much. Otherwise, they're all going to end up fighting and inviting a whole group of cars. No problem for us. I'm quite happy to have a train of 10 cars. But for the championship, it's risky.
It really is, because once these two guys in front here, Guven with a green and white car and the orange-white car, it's ten Voorde, fighting for the first spot on the podium and also for the first spot in the championship. Once they do each other, if they fight too hard, and maybe Pereira gets the spot at the sun, then it could be interesting for the championship with another guy.
This is so intense. It's so difficult to know how long your car is. Oh, door open for Dylan Pereira. He'll take that. Thank you very much. I think he was a little bit overcautious, actually. Decided to back out of it and not put his nose down the inside where it was not wanted. He's backed off enough, and look at the momentum that Larry Ten Voorde had off the Parabolica there. And, a little touch. I think there might be loading going on. That's the kind of thing you see in karting. Dylan Pereira pulls onto the outside line here, and he may well go all the way round to the outside of at least one as Jackson Evans gets involved. Too wide through the first chicane, and Evans moves himself up a position, and surely Pereira can maybe close the gap here. It's Leon Curler, who's up to 4th position. And they're still side by side with Dylan Pereira picking up the slipstream from Ayhancan Guven, and he'll have the inside line. No, Larry Ten Voorde shuts the door.
I love Monza. I love racing at Monza. That's how it is, and that's Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup. I mean, it's a virtual edition, but it's exactly what we would see in the real world. So I really like it. And Ten Voorde tries another one on Guven on the inside of Lesmo 1. Both together through Lesmo 1, and now better end for Ten Voorde into Lesmo 2. Whoa, and Guven has to go wide.
Guven off track slows up because of the gravel that's on the outside, and now Guven 1, 2, 3 places down, and it could be 4 places down now. Larry Ten Voorde leads. Dylan Pereira looks to go to the outside. I can't believe how many Carrera Cup cars are on the same piece of tarmac here. A bit of contact further back. Tandy gets bullied off. Takes the curb and some contact, and he's taken Van Spluteren with him, and he's not in a very comfortable place to park either way. Nick, get out the way. He gets going again. Let's have a look, Jan. What happened?
I think going 3 wide into Ascari, then Fantor and Tandy, the both works drivers, factory drivers, crashed. And then, as we saw from Ten Voorde, Tandy took the inside curb too much. He jumped to the outside, and then, unfortunately, he crashed into Van Spluteren. But it was not avoidable for Tandy anyway.
Well, it's taken a couple of cars out of that group at least, but there's still a healthy group with Lawrence Vanthor and Jackson Evans at the tail of it. And key, though, is that Ayhancan Guven is 4th now, and Larry Ten Voorde is leading the queue. And there is no way that Leon Curler is going to allow Guven to get past easily. So Guven has got some serious work to do here. And was that all because they decided to go too wide through Lesmo? It's not a place you should really be running too wide.
No, I mean, it's always not a good idea to run side by side through a corner, because then you lose all the momentum out of the corner. But I mean, that's the racing. That's what we want to see, and that's what we will see for the next 16 minutes as well.
I'm not sure I can cope if both races are going to be this intense. If I go quiet, it's because I've probably fainted through excitement. It really is going to be quite an incredible fight. Either that, or I've forgotten to turn my microphone back on after having a drink, which was what happened earlier. Sorry. Here we go then. On board with Ayhancan Guven in the slipstream of Leon Curler. Curler's I rating is only just above 2,000. Ayhancan Guven 8,000, and you really, if you're getting 30 or 40 improvement points per race, it proves just how much experience Guven has over somebody like Curler.
Yeah, correct. I mean, you can go in private sessions, then you will not raise your I rating. But even though, I mean, it's amazing what Guven is doing with his I rating. But what we see here is Leon Köhler. That's kind of technical issues you can have in sim racing. He's so-called blinking, and that's because of a bad internet connection from him. And so if that's too hard, that's too much, then iRacing is kicking you out of the session while Guven has made his spot onto the podium now.
Yeah, and the reason why the iRacing will kick you out of the race is because it's dangerous to have cars around you with you appearing and disappearing. It is incredibly scary, and I had it the other day when all the cars around you suddenly disappear and you're on your own and you're like, I know there are cars there, I just can't see them right now, and you do not want to end up causing an accident because of that. So iRacing has a really good system of controlling that, and if your internet connection is not good enough, then it will boot you out. But it's amazing, really, that you can have a pretty bad internet connection and still run really well in multiplayer on this game. So it's fantastic systems that allow you to do that.
Yeah, I mean, iRacing is clever enough to calculate a little bit because of your average laps before, a little bit into the future, and knows about where the car should be. While we see Evans here taking Mawson into Variante Ascari.
That's an interesting way of rejoining. But I think they got away with it. Jackson Evans then. And let's have a look at the replay.
Yeah, Evans takes the inside. A little contact between each other. Then he sent him through the gravel. I mean, he didn't really slow down. Mawson, he didn't really slow down. So that's why they almost crashed into each other exit of Ascari.
At least he kept the car straight though and didn't spin across and spear him. That's one good thing. Here's Guven now on Dylan Pereira down the inside, and makes it look super simple, really. Interesting, perhaps, that those two are not really trying to fight Guven, and they're just kind of letting him through so that he can now chase down our leader. What is the gap though between our leader and second position? It is 0.6 of a second, so he will be still picking up a bit of a slipstream, Jan, but not a huge amount.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a bit of it. But while we see here the replay of Love, he just went. It looks like technical issue because he was not steering anymore. We had that in the past with a couple of drivers in different sim races. The steering was not working anymore. So that's kind of the technical issues probably John Love had.
Yeah, so you don't get technical issues as much like suspension, brake failures, things like that, unless you have damage. You don't have random failures as much in the virtual world as the real world, but you do have random failures in your equipment, like your internet connection, or your steering wheel, or your pedals, and various things like that. So when you see a car just go straight like that, generally it does seem to be something their end, if you like. A very second-hand looking Julian Ondelea. He was took over that car from Andrea Lotterer. Lotterer is now participating for Porsche's Formula E team. That is how that happened, unless that's another accident. So Porsche's Formula E team running virtually at the moment, racing. I don't know where their race is this weekend. I think it's in an imaginary circuit. It's back to Hong Kong, isn't it?
It's back to Hong Kong, yeah.
Yeah, they ran the imaginary circuit and got a lot of stick.
That 10-4 went straight, I think, in the chicane. Sven Müller. Oh, no, these cars look so equal. Both are white and orange. So I saw just one car running straight in the chicane, but 10-4 is still in the lead. Once, I mean, we have 11 minutes to go. Once we would finish the race like this, then 10-4 would take the lead in the championship with 6 points ahead of Guven. So, I mean, it's going to be very, very interesting.
Then it will be winner takes all for our final race, unless any of the others can get into the mix of things, which we saw in the early stages. They could before Nick Taney's accident. Him and Dylan Pereira were right with these guys. But lap times last time through, Larry ten Voorde did a 50.34, Guven did a 50.29, and then Leon Curler was half a second back on that. So once they got all the tyres and stuff up to temperature, and it does seem to take on iRacing a while to get confidence into the cars and the cars to be sticking. Once that happened, then the two up front seemed to be significantly faster than the rest.
I mean, Guven, he's too far away now to first do an attempt to 10-4, but it's good enough to get into slipstream now, to be at the tail of 10-4 after the first chicane. So he will make his way to the car now, and then maybe be at the back of this yellow or orange and white car right here.
It is starting to get seriously close again. Just under 10 minutes remaining. And Guven is on the tail of Larry ten Voorde. Back to how we were. How aggressive will Larry ten Voorde be with the defending, because we didn't really get a chance to see the Dutchman defend, did we? It was all about Guven doing the defensive work early doors, and Ten Voorde sits right in the middle of the track. Doesn't force Guven anywhere. He just kind of blocks him and gives him very little options in terms of places to go. Now, what about through the Lesmos? This is where they ran side by side a few moments ago, which didn't help and put Guven into the gravel. And sensibly, this time, they stay line astern.
I mean, you obviously see that Guven is faster than Ten Voorde, but if Ten Voorde is clever enough to know the places where Guven can try to overtake. So therefore, he's going for the inside line and blocking the inside line so that Guven has no chance to go for a gap.
For those of you watching and do play iRacing and do participate in races around Monza and wonder how on earth are these guys doing what they're doing and getting so far off track, we do have off tracks off in this competition. So I've got a count of them. Larry Ten Voorde has done 10 off tracks during this race. That in my little league would have got him a drive-through penalty, but we don't have those turned on for this race to allow these guys to ride the curbs as they would do in real life. Interestingly though, Guven with only 4 off tracks throughout the race, and that can be running wide at Lesmos or taking too much curb at either of the chicanes. Defending. Larry Ten Voorde on the inside line, putting Guven to the outside. And again, they're going to go side by side into the first chicane. Guven sensibly backs out of it.
He's clever. I mean, Guven he's aggressive in driving, but you need to be aggressive in driving once you're in a Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup, because it's all equal and it's all up to driving, and so he's good. He's good in there, but I think he's also clever enough to stay calm and wait for his real chance to pass Larry Ten Voorde.
We have 7.5 minutes remaining, a couple of laps around Monza. The lap is just under 2 minutes long. So what's that? I reckon we've got 3 or 4 laps left. On board with Ten Voorde. I kind of get the feeling it's going to be whoever is leading through Ascari will take victory here. Will lose out when it comes to the last lap. Because if you get a decent run through the Ascari chicane where we are now and get onto the tail, you can slipstream all the way down to Parabolica, and then it will be a drag to the line. We've seen it so many times in the real world in Monza, and it only seems to get closer in the virtual world. Every virtual race that I see is far better than real life racing, and I'm quite content sitting at home commentating on these virtual races because they're so exciting. It's so exciting to watch. I just missed out on the pizza going to Monza this week.
Yeah, but that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's racing what you want to see and what we sometimes miss a little bit in the real world. But I can trust you, as I know from my past years. I've done in the Super Cup another try from Guven on the outside, but a little oversteering, oversteering into the first chicane, so he loses a little bit of the gap is bigger now. As I can tell you from my experience from the years I've done the Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup, it's both. It's in the sim racing, really nice and close fights, and also in the real world.
Oh yeah, absolutely, definitely not taking it away. And I guess one of the things that we're all missing right now is, and something that's also quite fun when it comes to these sessions, that camaraderie of being in the paddock and chatting to people and chatting to your fellow competitors. With this platform, going into a session and being with other drivers, you have the ability, if you want, to chat to all of the competitors if chat is open. And there is this kind of camaraderie between everybody to help each other out and to have good racing as well.
Yes, so I think sim racing is kind of making the huge motorsport world bring them even more together, and but still the racing is still hard enough. So your friends beside the track, but here, as you see here, another Mawson going. I think it was Van Tor. He passed. So racing on the track is still the same, but the friendship beside the track, I think, is a little more in sim racing.
Yeah, it is. It's quite interesting, really, that is the case. Even though everybody is separated geographically, there does seem to be a closeness that the virtual world brings out in the way that the real world, even if you are in the same place, you don't necessarily communicate as much. It looks pretty equal, doesn't it, between our 4 drivers at the front of the field right now? Equidistant. Last time through, Larry Tenvorda's lap was not a good one. It was a 51.0. Aytan Guven did a 51.4, but Pereira and Köhler were in the 50s. They were in the 50s with penalty points, but that doesn't matter. And the 50.7, in fact, they both did exactly the same lap time. So interesting that they were the faster. Oh, got very late, very close on the brakes there.
Oh yeah, I think it was not on purpose. I think he was too late on the brakes, but he made it. So there you can see another proof for his professionalism in sim racing as well, because it's not so easy. As you know, you're driving in sim races. I do as well, and so it's not so easy to really get the feeling for that. Even though when you do mistakes like this.
Yeah, absolutely. If you haven't experienced being in a sim race before, one of the difficulties for all these drivers is distance perception and knowing how far away you are. As Larry Tenvorda goes very, very, very off track, somehow keeps it going in the right direction and keeps a little bit of momentum going there, but he was way, way wayward.
Oh yeah, he did almost the same he did in qualifying, but now it's again Guven at the tail of Tenvorda. Both did a mistake, and now it's equal again.
Yeah, so in the sim world, distance perception is difficult, and one of the big things is knowing where your competitor is when you're around them. A triple screen, 3 screens around your face helps a lot. You at least can turn your head to the left-hand side to see an overlap, and you also in this game have somebody saying, overlap, car left, car left, car left, and somehow Larry Tenvorda holds on. Now it's car right, pushes Guven very wide, and hello Dylan Pereira back in the game in the Pink Pig. BWT sponsored car is right back in it, and good to see that they consistently are being represented well by Dylan Pereira, you know, because Lechner Racing really are the team to beat when it comes to the real world, but in the virtual world GPLE have really thrown down the gauntlet here, and here is all pink Dylan Pereira flying the flag for BWT. His teammate in the real world, Mikael Ammermuller, will be hoping to win the championship when we get back into the real world, but didn't get on with the virtual simulation.
I mean, that's pure racing, what we see from these guys. And also Leon Köhler, who's in the best spot for this, because Pereira and him, they just watch these guys, because they cannot lose anything. I mean, Pereira and Köhler, they just can win in this game. So once these guys here, Tenvorda in front and Guven behind, once they do a mistake, they will gain from that. So they will gain the advantage. And I think that's going to be really interesting for the last lap we go in now.
Very, very messy again from Tenvorda through Ascari. I wonder whether the tyres are not as happy as they were at the start of the race, and he's just trying to eke out just that extra little bit through the Ascari chicane. This is going to be a tricky one for Guven, because he is supplying a big old slipstream to Dylan Pereira behind, as well as needing to attack, and we've got back markers to play with as well. It's Patrick Pilet running the middle of the track as Tenvorda hugs that inside white line, forces everybody to the outside, and this is going to be really tricky with Pilet. Where's Pilet going? Good work from Patrick Pilet. Decides to go straight on the chicane and stay out of this battle. It is so close for the win. This is the last lap. Through the Curva Grande. That used to be turn 1 at Monza before the chicanes were put in, and they go side by side into the second of our chicanes. On the inside line is Tenvorda. Guven runs over the curb. It's going to be a mistake. Guven's going to lose 2 positions. That's crucial. He could have just stayed there, but by losing 2 positions, that could compromise his championship hopes completely. Here it is again.
10-4 blocks the inside line. That's what he can do. He stays on the racing line, but then Guven is a little bit too fast into the left-hander, and then he has to use the curbs, jumped over it, and then he loses all the momentum out of the chicane.
When it gets to the crunch of things, time and time again, Guven has issues when it really, really matters. We've seen it in this last couple of weeks in IMSA. We've seen it a few times here as well. He does make mistakes, and he's only now got 2 corners to go to try and get himself more points. He's flashing his lights furiously. Back markers are in the way. He really wants to get past Leon Köhler. Köhler's thinking about trying to get past Dylan Pereira. Guven dives very late on the brakes, but it's not going to be enough. And Guven is going to lose huge points in the championship here. Larry ten Voorde did nothing wrong and everything right, and he takes victory at race 1 here in Monza. What a victory it is, with Dylan Pereira second, Leon Köhler first time onto the podium, and Ayhancan Guven is going to be furious with that. He only finishes 4th spot. Wow, wow, wow. Simona Silvestro, Richard Lietz coming into the final corner together, 2 of our Porsche legends. Simona is going to maybe pick up a position here by a very unorthodox inside line around Parabolica. She moves up to 9th, and now the drag to the line. Oh, she's just lost out. Oh, dear. So she will start 10th for our race 2. Here are a few other drivers. The second of our lady races, Fabienne Vulvend. And she is just behind David Fuminelli. And they come across the line. Remembering that the finishing line, well, usually is up back there, but maybe here on iRacing it is there at the same place as the start line. It is the first one. That's good. I was half right for once. Where's Nick Tandy? He is, I think he finished just ahead of David Fuminelli, so he will start 13th for race 2. Plenty of people visited the pit lane. There is a very damaged Jordan Love. Lots of work for Jordan to do for the second race as well. Remember, grid for race 2 is the result of race 1. Jesse van Kuijken will start at the back of the field for the second time. Yes, he didn't even finish a lap. Retired out of the race after lap 1. Having helped teammate ten Voorde, let's hope that GP Elite give him a big old pat on the back or something even better for the help that Jesse did in qualifying, because without Jesse, maybe ten Voorde wouldn't have been on the pole position. Although he wasn't. He was in second, but either way. Here are the results of that first race then. Jan is doing the maths on the championship positions. Larry ten Voorde beats Dylan Pereira by half a second. Leon Köhler on the podium in 3rd, best of our rookies as well. Guven drops to 4th by the end. Jackson Evans in 5th. Lawrence Van Thor, best result for him in the Supercup, in 6th. Joey Mawson, Vax van Sputteren in 8th. Richard Lietz and Simona de Silvestro we saw coming across the line just over half a minute behind in a nice little battle. Yeah, Van Lagen's improving. P11, I reckon that's his best result. Marius Nacken 12th, Nick Tandy 13th, David Fuminelli and Fabienne Vulvend. And then Roar Lindland, Simonauer, Mathieu Love and Lorena in 20th spot. We had 29 competitors. Patrick Pilet visited the pits a few times. Christian Engelhardt the same. Sven Muller, we didn't see him. Julian Onderleyer made a mess of his boss-sponsored car. Jukka Honkavori was an early spinner. Pontus Fredriksson, Jaden Conright obviously retired well early. Mark Sinney and Jesse van Kuijken, as I said, didn't make it a lap. So now we have a bit of a warm-up session for the drivers to relax between races. They don't have to go out. They can just have themselves a little break. And then we'll be back for race 2. Make sure you do not miss out. It's the final race of the championship. Ten Voorde versus Guven, the final chapter.
Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup is the pinnacle for over 20 Porsche one-make series. For 25 years, it's been the canvas and the cutting-edge category for all the drivers to test themselves wheel to wheel. Since the inaugural season in 1993, the series has been part of the FIA Formula One Championship, always been held directly ahead of the Grand Prix races at prestigious European and international locations. This allows the championship to share worldwide exposure and the wonder that Formula One brings. An average of 100,000 motorsport fans attend each thrilling event to watch drivers battle it out. The millions of TV spectators, as well as impressions in over 100 countries worldwide, make the series popular on a local and global scale. The competitiveness in the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup between talented youngsters and seasoned specialists creates an environment which produces stars of the future for top global motorsport events and series. These stars include Timo Bernhard and former Supercup champion Earl Bamber. Professional teams and drivers go head-to-head in powerful, technically identical cars in what is the fastest one-make series at international level. The uncompromising power of the 911 GT3 Cup is the formidable weapon of choice, boasting an impressive 485 brake horsepower. The car has no ABS or traction control to impede the fairness of the series, thus making it one of the most challenging race cars to master today. There's no autopilot here, just raw driving skills. The Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup, pure, unadulterated racing.
A little look then at the real world Super Cup from last year, the spectacular championship, which runs as a support race to the Formula One Grand Prix season. And basically, when they announce their calendar, Porsche are able to announce where they're going. They will then have those firm dates to run that absolutely spectacular support slot just before the Grand Prix. The last race that goes out before a Formula One race is the Porsche Supercups, which means, you know, everybody's already in their seats and watching and enjoying. It's quite a platform, isn't it, Jan, to race in?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always a good crowd you're racing in front of. As you say, everybody's in his seats already, and also Formula One is getting ready, and so there's no better spot than this Porsche's Mobil 1 Super Cup can have in the Formula One paddock and in the races at the weekends. So I think it's time now. I think it's time for everybody, not only for us and not only for Porsche, also for the spectators and for the drivers and for everybody to go back on track. I mean, yeah, sure. I think it will be different. I think in the whole motorsport world, it will be different from now a little bit. To organize everything, to let's say fit it into the situation, but I can't wait to see these cars roaring around the real tracks again.
Yeah, I guess one of the main tricky things is to allow transport between countries. At the moment, countries are blocked, and therefore you cannot drive from country to country. And of course, all these teams are based around Europe. Some will be Italian, some will be British, some are Austrian, German. They all need to get to that one single point, which means sometimes passing through multiple different countries. And that is the main kind of stumbling block for any motorsport right now. You can go testing in your own country, and for national series, I think it's probably a lot easier to get going. But international series, seemingly a lot harder. But, 2 months ago, we didn't even know what lockdown was, and now we're starting to think about easing lockdown in a lot of the world. So in 2 months' time, which is when Formula One are speculating to begin in July, we will be in a very different world again. So really excited to get the motorsport season. The only thing about it, Jan, is it's going to be as mental as this virtual season has been over the last couple of months, because everybody is going to be racing. They've only got a few months to do it. And so for you and I as in the media, I think we're going to be rushed off our feet. And as driver as well.
It will be back-to-back races all over until December, I think. I saw. I mean, you and I, we saw already some scheduled calendars or some provisional calendars, and it's going to be a really interesting season. And you see all the clashes. You already spoke about it in for Le Mans and IMSA, for example. And we have so many clashes and so many drivers driving different championships and. It will be interesting, but I think it's like a real flat out season. You know what I mean? So it's not from May until October or November. It will be like from June or July until December, and flat out every weekend racing. And I like it. I think it will be interesting.
This is the last round of the virtual edition of the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup with all of our real-world drivers. But Porsche have put a huge amount of effort into supporting the virtual world even before this pandemic existed, and they ran for the first time last year a Supercup for the best sim racers in the world. And I thought this would be a good opportunity whilst we're waiting for our second race to bring in Paul Smith, who is our producer for this, but the expert commentator for the virtual Supercup. It's something that rewards probably the biggest prize pot in sim racing, Paul, at the moment. Was $100,000, $200,000 this year?
Yes, $200,000 is what the current prize pot is. Of course, the winner of each of the feature races of the 10 weeks of the championship gets to win $1,000 for that. So you can earn the money throughout the season, not just at the end of the year when they're giving away the prizes. But I really enjoyed the first season of it. It was a brand new championship last year, so really there was a lot of learning going on for these drivers and for those pro sim racers to really push things to the limit. But then the second season, you've had a fresh batch of 20 or so, well, about 17 drivers to be precise, new drivers to the series come in, and some of the levels that they've stepped up to is just unbelievable. At the moment, we've got new qualifiers, rookies to the series, are currently leading the championship. So it goes to show that just because you've got people freshly coming in qualifying doesn't mean that the standard is dropping. It's getting higher and higher. Plus, we've got certain Max Verstappen on the grid as well.
I was going to say that such is the attraction of racing in what I sort of I call it the virtual iRacing World Championship, because in effect it kind of has taken over from a single-seater championship that iRacing used to run, which was called the World Championship, and it is really, on iRacing at the very least, and there are other platforms out there, the pinnacle. There is no other championship that really shows the drivers in a sprint race format as well as that particular championship.
Yeah, the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing is just the pinnacle of road racing on iRacing. And it is a true world championship. You've got drivers from all over the world competing in that. It's not just European based. We've got people from the United States, we've got people from Brazil, people from Australia. It's a worldwide championship, and not only do the champion get to win a bunch of prize money and a trophy, they get to go to the end of season awards dinner for Porsche as well and be presented there, because Josh Rogers, who won last season, he attended the end of season prize giving with Porsche.
In terms of prizes, Jan, having that kind of prize pot, I know that the Super Cup does have a small prize pot, but the virtual world's prize pots are almost bigger than what we see in real world racing.
Yeah, I mean, you see that in esports in general. So, and I mean, you have to see the effort to build up sim racing races is not that huge, logistical and budget-wise a problem, let's say. And so I think you have, like, with the sponsors and stuff, you can spend more on the prize pool, and so I like that, and I hope, so that's my own opinion, to race more professional sim race like we have with the Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup, the virtual edition, to have it like in the winter season, so have an actual real world season from, let's say, March to October, and from November to February we have the sim racing season. So I would like to see that, and probably, or maybe we can have that in the future.
Absolutely. And Paul, how do people get to watch the championship? What's the calendar like across? It is across the whole of the summer months, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is. You put me on the spot there, because I have to go searching for my calendar. But
it is a little.
Donington Park. I can tell you that.
And that's next weekend?
Yes, we had the first two rounds. The first round was at Circuit Park Zandvoort. Brilliant racing from there. Really tight track, and yet they were able to put on one heck of a show. You then had last week at Circuit de Barcelona Catalonia, which of course we saw on in this championship as well earlier on. So you've seen those first rounds have been amazing racing, some fantastic wheel-to-wheel action, door rubbing. There's been a couple of incidents happen that affected new championship leaders Sebastian Job and Joshua Rogers didn't have the best of times last time out at Barcelona. But Donington Park, it's a different track. It's a different feel to it, and you can watch it. It's right across social media, on Porsche's social media, on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. Check them out, and you just want to check out those races. Next week it's Donington Park. I'm looking forward to it because it's one of my favourite tracks in the world. Yes, I'm biased because I'm British, but it is just a superb track. And following that, so that's next week. We head to Le Mans, Circuit de la Sarthe, on June the 13th, and then we take on the Green Hell at Nürburgring Nordschleife on July 4th, Independence Day out there in the United States. Then go to Silverstone, 18th of July, and then head back over across the pond to Road Atlanta on 1st of August. Brands Hatch on the Grand Prix circuit, that'll be some fantastic action. Always get great close action around there on August the 15th. Spa-Francorchamps at the end of August 29th. And then the final round, same as last season, around this very circuit at Monza. It's going to be absolutely sensational action.
So the championship kind of mirrors some of the big real-world events that are happening. I think it sounds like the Spa event was supposed to take place the same time as Formula 1 at Spa, Monza the same time as Formula 1 at Monza, Le Mans the same weekend at Le Mans. Yep. It's kind of a bit of a dream calendar, really. Any track that's on iRacing, you don't have any constrictions of how much to pay for the license of the track in terms of, when you're actually running a real world event, you have to think about those kind of things. You can go and race at Le Mans whenever you want. You can go and do what you would not normally do in a Supercup race, to have all of these cars running down the Mulsanne Straight during the Mans weekend.
Yeah, it's brilliant what this service provides. And don't forget, Le Mans is only available in the real world basically for a couple of weeks, because the rest of the time it's perfect public road. Whereas on iRacing, you can just jump into the sim and say, I fancy doing some laps around Le Mans, and away you go.
Yeah, and if you're watching this and you fancy going, well, I can do better than what those guys are doing, then you can get yourself onto iRacing. You can download this car, you can download this track. This might even be one of the tracks which is available free, because you get about 20 tracks free when you subscribe to iRacing initially, and cars. And then you can actually do it. So, no holding back. I know there's a lot of sim racing to watch this afternoon and this evening, but at the moment, this is a great opportunity to get yourself involved in iRacing whilst you're not able to do anything else with your life. We're getting close to the start of the race, just 3 minutes left. Thank you very much, Paul Smith, who'll be joined by Martin Haven for the virtual edition of the virtual world of the Supercup. As a virtual commentator, I'm commentating on the real world virtual edition, confusingly. But either way, I'm still happy to be here, and it's great to have Martin Haven in the virtual world. It is real Martin Haven, though. It's not a virtual version of him. That would be weird. And nobody wants to duplicate Martin Haven, I tell you. One is enough. When he's fantastic, but one is enough, and he knows what I mean if he's listening, which he probably isn't, because I think he's commentating on something else right now. Right, race 2. Jan, have you been working out the points? Do you know what Guven needs to do to win this championship now that he's lost a couple of points in race 1?
Yeah, so we have the championship as it is now with 155 points for Tenforde and Guven with 146. So it's 9 points separating them. So that means once Guven is taking the championship, or is winning the race, it is enough for Tenforde to finish third. So if Tenforde is third in race number 2, Guven can do whatever he wants. It is not possible because they are split by 1 point then. So Guven has to win, or has to be at least 2 or 3 places between Tenforde and him.
Interesting. It is going to be a fascinating final race. Work to do also from second row of the grid for Guven. There's no real safe place to be heading down to that first chicane here at Monza. You've got to be so careful. Everyone's on cold tyres, cold brakes, and in iRacing it feels like you're driving on ice the first couple of laps in any car that you're driving, such as the way that the platform kind of progresses through the laps. So you're on tenterhooks anyway, and then you've got cars all around you doing stuff that you're not necessarily sure what they're doing. You don't have that perception, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, with the ability to really see to left and right. I don't know if anybody here is using virtual reality goggles, but for me that is the only way to get yourself any kind of normal perception that you would have in a real world car, Jan. Even the triple screen, for me, it helps a lot, but it doesn't help. It doesn't necessarily give everything you need.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was the problem I had in the past. The view around me, and I had one big screen in front of me. It was the 49 inches, but it was not enough. Yeah, it was not enough. So you really have to, as a professional real-world driver, you really have to the view around you, and that's with the goggles. It's the best with the virtual reality goggles.
Yeah, that is my next investment. Anybody out there who's got a spare set, send them to me. I'll give you my address later. You can find me on Twitter at Ben Consti. There you go. There's a plug. Right. The cars are getting themselves gridded up. And it is Larry Tenforde on the pole position, with Dylan Pereira in second place and Leon Köhler in third. Ayhancan Guven has 3 spots to progress. He needs that victory now. Jackson Evans in 5th. Lawrence Vanthor starts a career best in the sim world. 6th, Jerry Mawson 7th. Max van Spluter in 8th. And then in 9th spot, Richard Leitz, Simona Silvestre, Jaap van Lagen, Marius Nacken, Tandy, he's man to watch in 13th, Fuminelli 14th, Fabian Vulven 15th, Roel Linden 16th. Watch out for Tandy causing chaos as well. Jean-Baptiste Simonauer, then Clement Mathieu, Jordan Love, Mathieu Lorena down in 20th, Patrick Pilet, Christian Engelhardt, Sven Muller, Julian Onderleyer, all of our pro drivers. And we do have Jesse Van Koyke at the tail of the field, who should be making their way through to the front. We are off and running, and it's been a poor start from Guven. Guven's gone backwards massively, and hopefully he doesn't get caught up in too much chaos. There is a few cars off at the back of the field, but Guven is way down the field now. He's given himself a huge amount of work to do. Ten Vorder through in first. Dylan Pereira in second. It's As You Were in the top three, and there's Guven. Guven's been caught in an accident. He gets off the corner, but he's down in the 11th position. There's Simone Silvestro to get past, and now Guven has a huge mountain to climb if he wants to win this first virtual edition. If you were a betting man, you would have put huge money on Guven winning this, and now he's put himself in a difficult spot to do just that. Collision further ahead. Tandy's been spun round. Guven managing to miss that one, and Tandy is now at the back of the field. I told you to watch out for him causing chaos in the middle of the pack. At the front of the field, Ten Vorder has made a gap. He needs to push now, take full advantage of those new tyres, get as big a gap as possible, and then lay down the gauntlet to Guven to chase down. But they were equal on footing in the first race. They didn't really, it was hundredths of a second here and there, and Guven is, where is the gaps? A long way down. We'll get the gaps at the end of the first lap.
Yeah, he's
Dylan Pereira in
seventh.
second.
Yeah, he's on 7th. He dropped down to 7th position, and that's a long way to go because Ten Vorder, he's doing his job, and here we see Guven, and I mean, he was struggling maybe because of wheel spin, because these guys, they really have to play with the clutch and with the throttle at the start, so it's like in real racing, and maybe he had a little bit, he was maybe a bit kind of nervous because he knows it's up to him to push. And so then he was in struggle in the first chicane and second chicane, so he dropped back because of that.
Guven is 6.18 seconds back from our leaders. There is side-by-side action going into the first chicane, and that is for second spot, Leon Curler and Jackson Evans running side-by-side. Curler drops to third again and sits behind. So where has Dylan Pereira's dropped from second to fourth? Dylan Pereira's had an issue as well. He's got damage to his car. I wonder whether he lost it all on his own, but he's got damage. The car will not be as fast now, and he will feel bad. He's run off wide. Ascari.
Yeah, the same spot we saw Ten Vorder running wide, out exit of Ascari. You see it here in the replay. He took this sausage curb and then crashed into the wall. He made it to go back to the track, but he has a minor damage on the right-hand side. You can see right here on the front of his car.
Always be careful of the sausage. They are dangerous things. Oh, and behind him, Lawrence Vanthor nearly spearing himself into the wall. Lawrence Vanthor could find himself on the podium here, such as his performance, and he's just slowly making progress. There is Guven in the front of the shot there, and so one place at least by Dylan Pereira having damage. That is at least one place that Guven should be able to get up from. Remember, it's not about the gap, it's about the points. But Guven needs to win this. He needs to win over Ten Vorder. Such was his mistake in the first race. And the gap is still the same, 5.6 seconds. He's actually taken half a second out of Larry Ten Vorder on this lap, but he's got cars to pass as well that won't be easy. Pereira drops the position to Lawrence Vanthor, and Vanthor now into fourth. Still battling for second though. Evans and Leon Curler running side by side. Cars off. Where's that?
It's before Parabolica, I guess.
They've got one car going one direction, one car going another. I wonder whether that was blinking that caused that.
I think it was blinking. You see, you could see the car in front, Yuka Hunkavori. He was blinking, and then everybody crashed. That's what we were talking about in race number 1. You don't know where that car is, and then immediately you just crash, and you don't know why.
That was a right mess, wasn't it? Rory Linden is continuing, but it doesn't look very happy, that car now. So we have lost a few people, sadly, already from this race. I think we've got Sven Muller, Pontus Fredriksson, Patrick Pile, Matteo Lorena, Max van Splutteren, David Fuminelli and Marius Nakin all in pit lane. So that's a shame, but it has been the way of this race. Aychan Guven has got ahead of Dylan Pereira. So Pereira really is a wounded goose for this race, which is a great shame for Pereira. A race winner in the first race that we had at Spa, but he is going to... I don't think he'll lose his third in the championship here, as long as he doesn't drop too many positions. He'll be battling with Joey Mawson and Jackson Evans, and those two are fiercely fighting each other for second right now. But Guven now. I'm keeping an eye on Guven's gap to Larry Ten Voorde on each lap. It has not changed on this one, 5.5 seconds. And of course, presumably, Larry Ten Voorde will also be able to check on that gap as well. He'll be able to see where Guven is in his relative lap times. Why has Vanthor gone into the pits? What's he doing? Oh, that's a shame. Lawrence Vanthor was in a really good position. Let's see what happens to that pit stop, because he hasn't had any issues on track. But there's nothing on the timing screens either. That's very odd.
Yeah, I couldn't see anything as well, because he was running good. He was running in fourth spot, and then.
Did he get a jump start? I'm going to watch him. He's now moving again, so looks as though that was a stop-go penalty for Lawrence Vanthor, and that is a great shame. He's coming back out of the pits now, but at the tail of the field, and it was going so well for Vanthor. He's really made so much progress, and to get himself a podium in the Supercup in the last round would have been a really good way to cement that progress. But sadly, he's going to have to fight another day, perhaps in the IMSA series in the next few weeks, to try and get himself a good position. Perhaps he'll turn his attention to the Le Mans 24 Hours that Porsche have entered 4 cars into virtually happening on the weekend that it should have been happening in June. Don't worry, though, Le Mans 24 Hours is scheduled to happen on the 20th and 19th of September for real. And I'm pretty sure it will happen. But the virtual one will happen in the actual proper traditional date. Leon Köhler and Jackson Evans fighting over P2. Can't find a way through the Parabolica. Now into the slipstream and maybe down the inside into the chicane. Meanwhile, Larry Ten Voorde really has checked out at the front of the field. And again, looks to the inside line and can't find a way through this time. But this is going to be the entertainment, isn't it, for the rest of this race? Actually, Lawrence Vanthor has now quit out of the race, so unfortunate that that has happened to him.
Yeah, so he just went off. But here we see the fight between Jackson Evans and Leon Köhler for a second spot. And Köhler goes to the inside and tries to overtake, and he made it against Jackson Evans. So Köhler now in second spot, trying to get Ten Voorde, but I think that will be a difficult one. And but to remind everybody, Guven, who is behind these two, he has to be in front of Ten Voorde. We see there at the edge of the screen, and so that's a hard job for him.
Back into the slipstream. Not really a place to overtake into Ascari. I'll have to wait for the Parabolica for his next opportunity. Just shows how tricky this platform is to get the best out of. And Ayçen Guven, his lap time, a best lap last time through of a 50.25, fastest lap of the race. And now onto the tail of these guys. And Jackson Evans, New Zealander, junior driver for Porsche. Timing screen says Jackson Evans is in third position. And it's Leon Köhler in second.
Yes.
That is correct, yeah. And here now is Guven. Needs to be careful because he'll know that those two guys are fighting ahead. And I'm not quite sure he's going to be quite close enough. He gets another fastest lap, nearly as fast as qualifying. Such was that little slipstream he got. And down the inside, Evans goes. Side by side they run. And all of this, Guven is going to say thank you very much. Thinks about going 3 wide. Not a good idea. Instead, cuts back, goes into the slipstream of Jackson Evans, who's now up to P2, and goes to side by side with Leon Köhler. Köhler's going to have the inside line, but decides to slot in behind Ayçen Guven, and Guven now to the inside of Jackson Evans. They're both very, very kind. In fact, that's compromised Evans hugely. And now let's Leon Köhler back around the outside of him. So such was politeness for the Turkish driver that he actually compromised and lost a position himself.
Yeah, so I mean now it's the hunt of Ayrton Guven to get Larry Tenford. We saw him in race number 1. He was the fastest guy in race number 1, Guven, but he couldn't manage to convert it into a victory. But now he has fresh air in front of him, and these guys here, Köhler, we see here, and Evans behind him, they will fight still, and we can see just a little bit at the edge of the screen. There was Tenford going into Parabolica now, and there's a long way to go for this guy here, Ayrton Guven.
Yeah, 5.4 seconds is the gap between Tenford and Guven. Guven took half a second out of Tenford that last time through. Let's see what the lap time is this time. It's not going to be the fastest lap of the race, surely, when he's had to make those 2 passes. And in fact, he loses time, nearly 5-6 tenths of a second to Tenford on this last lap. We look further back. Simona de Silvestro up to 6th position. She's done fantastically well over the last couple of weeks in this platform to get herself onto the pace. The commitment that these pro drivers are putting in to the virtual world is absolutely spellbinding. We're talking 6, 7, 8 hours a day getting themselves a good feeling and understanding how the platforms work to get the best performance, because there are the likes of Guven and Tenford out there who have been doing this since they were in nappies, and the rest of them have never really shown huge interest in the virtual world. If they were, it's being forced upon them by engineers to get into a simulator, and now all of a sudden the whole world of motorsport is interested in virtual racing, and it's fantastic to see. But it does mean that some of these guys have got a huge amount of catching up to do. Someone like Richard Lietz, for instance, and it's nice to see that now someone like Simona can get a full race in without any mistakes and get lapped closer to the guys who are the aliens of our competition.
Yeah, so but these guys do well. When you see how they progress from race number 1 until now, it's a huge progress. The whole field did. I mean, I can remember a little bit of crashes, let's say, in the first 2 races we saw, but now it's really nice fights, really close fights, and that's what we want to see, and that's also a big progress, as I say, from all of the drivers.
Mark Sinny and Jesse Van Kuijke. Van Kuijke has obviously been in the wars, damage to the front right of that car, and really Jesse should be really up there. And I'm a bit sad that kind of the team game that Jesse was so willing to play in qualifying completely compromised the races. Out in lap 1 with a massive collision, and then again here in race 2 with damage. Fighting with Mark Sinny, that Team Australia car looks a little bit more straight, and part of that Pro-Am battle. Who would be leading the Pro-Ams? I think he would be leading the Pro-Ams. No sign of his teammate. In fact, I don't know whether Stephen Grove even entered this race. No, I don't think he did. So Sinny is running the best of our Pro-Ams, down in 16th spot. Guven versus Larry Tenford last time through, matched lap times. So I think this may well be it in terms of the championship. Still got 10 minutes to go. Still possibilities to make mistakes. Larry Tenford just needs to make sure he's settled into a rhythm. He's got control of his nerves, and he is able to just keep pace, match what Ayrton Guven is doing behind him. On board with Jackson Evans, now in 4th position, so off the podium. Jackson, I think, did actually get... No one didn't get a podium, but got a 4th position in our opening race. So he was right up there, but in the second race had issues. And the same thing in Spa. Good first race, difficult second race. So to get 2 solid point scores in for this one would be a great effort from the New Zealander, who's obviously racing very, very early morning for him over in New Zealand, if indeed he is even racing from there.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it all the season long. That it's fascinating how they do it. I mean, they wake up in the morning or stay awake until in the middle of the night. Just to race here, so you see how really they're willing to do it, and I think that's showing the professionalism of this series and of the drivers as well.
Joey Mawson, 4th position in the championship coming into this weekend, and gained a position on Richard Lietz there. Now next target is Simona Di Silvestro, just ahead. And actually, Joey is in a bit of a fight with Jackson Evans coming into this weekend for 4th position in this championship. So Joey does need a decent result here to be able to be in the championship fight. At the moment, Mark Sinny is the Pro-Am champion, which makes sense as he's the leading Pro-Am driver. And Leon Köhler, really the only man from the Rookies Championship to star here in Monza. Everyone else has had issues or are the kind of the normal drivers. The rookie drivers are rookies in the real world, the Porsche Supercup, not rookies to sim racing, because most of them were rookies to sim racing when we began this a couple of months ago. Here goes to the outside Joey Mawson on Simona Di Silvestro, looking for another position, maybe the opportunity to get some more points. Got some damage to the front end, was involved I think with Ayçen Guven at the first corner. One of the reasons why Guven was delayed and couldn't get away through Simona there, but down the main straight perhaps he'll have a go at the braking zone into turn 1, although actually he might have to do a bit of defending here as well from Richard Lietz, who's also there. Simona's good on the brakes, no chance to get through down there, and so we head off to the Variante Bassa, the second of our chicanes, through the Curva Grande. Again in the slipstream, but yeah, and that car won't be feeling great. We you know, visibly we can see damage. That does mean that it'll feel quite bad in the car, won't it? The damage, visually the damage model is not huge, but actually behind the steering wheel it has a big difference.
Yes, correct. I mean, as you see such a big damage from the outside already, you can really feel it in the car, and probably also the steering wheel is showing a little bit to the left or right hand side, so it's not straight anymore, and so driving is not that easy, and also the car doesn't feel good to drive anymore, and we see quite a big damage there, so it's quite hard to drive a car like this.
Just a reminder, Larry ten Voorde leads our race. Second position, Ayçen Guven. The gap last time through was 5 seconds now. And then we've got this battle for third position, the last of the podium positions. Köhler back ahead of Jackson Evans, but Evans will be picking up a lovely slipstream all the way down into the first corner. These two have really entertained in this last race of the season. This time, though, Jackson not feeling the need to go down the inside. And what we're seeing in this battle is a little bit of mistakes creeping in. Every so often, offline or losing the rear end, and that's why the positions keep changing. It's not a pure slipstreamer passing, we are absolutely solid at iRacing kind of race. As you can see, Jackson Evans losing a bit through that second chicane. Now through the Lesmos. Gains a little bit each time. A bit more curb taken by Leon Köhler. Just unsettles the car a bit more, but Jackson Evans running a little bit wider. Oh dear, who's that? Joey Mawson has had a spin. Oh, what's happened here? Trying to get past Simona Di Silvestro. looks down the inside into the Ascari, into the first chicane, second chicane, and loses the rear end.
Yeah, so he tried to go to the inside line. They touched each other on the inside, but it's a race incident. So there's no one to blame. But then we can see that quite often in sim racing, that once you touch each other, you spin. So Simona Di Silvestro, we see here, she made the correct decisions. She opened the steering, went straight over the second chicane, but Mawson, he just spun.
It's going to be an interesting little battle. We've got Richard Lietz, Simona Di Silvestro and Nick Tandy. And Yuka Honkavori. Oh, Honkavori's got into the tail of Simona Di Silvestro and turned her around. That was not very nice. I was about to say it's going to be great fun to have those three pros and Yuka Honkavori, but Honkavori's shown his perhaps a little bit of inexperience. That front end's already looking a bit tired. And he goes side by side now with Nick Tandy. Tandy is trying to get up a position here from spinning on that first lap. Well, I'm brave to put his car in front of Yuka Honkavori, knowing what he just did to Silvestro. But luckily gets away with any tail abuse. And then this is a replay of down the inside. And easy pickings, really. He was actually even later on the brakes into that first chicane too. Back to the battle for third position. Jackson Evans right in the slipstream this time of Leon Köhler. Coming up to Ascari chicane, so not really the place to be doing the overtaking. It's just too fast, that left part. And now, good exit through here. And look how he draws up onto the tail of the bumper of the Carrera Cup car of Leon Köhler, the best of the rookies. Interesting, comes off the throttle, Jan.
So he backed off. Because there's no need to stick your nose into the inside, because it makes no sense when you're too far ahead, too far behind. And now he's just waiting for this situation to have a better exit out of Parabolica and tries to overtake Köhler here on the start and finish.
Side by side again for the final podium spot. Rookie honours are with Leon Köhler already. But maybe there's also the opportunity for Jackson Evans to be fourth in this championship. Dylan Pereira will pick up third just in the background there in the pink car, despite the very poor run he's had here because of contact and damage. But he should have enough points to stay in third. Köhler could be fourth in this championship. Jackson Evans could be fourth in this championship as well. And that is why this is a very important battle. Joey Mawson was fourth coming into the weekend, but Mawson is nearly outside the points actually. Such has been the damage to his car. And behind Yuka Honkavori and Nick Tandy right now.
Engelhardt.
There is Christian Engelhardt. Oh dear, what's happened to him?
First chicane. The ZF car. And over the curbs and probably a little bit wide. Yeah, so he went a little bit wide on the exit, and then he just spun out.
So easy to do. When you break traction on this particular platform, it does disappear remarkably quickly. As you were talking about a little bit earlier, a little bit of contact has huge consequences on iRacing, and it's the same with a slide. It's very, very hard unless you're doing oval racing or dirt racing in cars which are designed to slide. If you're trying to drive a Carrera Cup car, for instance, and trying to slide it, it just breaks away all the time.
Correct, yeah, so it's hard to drive even though you don't get feedback from the car. But here, again, the fight into last lap from Köhler with the black and white car against Jackson Evans in the black and blue car. So they're still fighting going into last lap of the season.
Yeah, and they've still got a couple more overtaking opportunities to sort this little duke out. Larry ten Voorde is your leader. He's still just under half a second ahead of Ayhancan Guven, but this, we don't know who's going to be third because it's been so up and down throughout this race. Leon Köhler takes a very tight line into the first chicane, exiting much better Jackson Evans, who gets on the flashes, but there was no space. He had the great exit, Jan, but there was no space to go down the inside.
No, there's no chance to go there. But now, if he gets a good exit here, maybe he can try into Variante Ascari. So he has slipstream. He's really close to the tail of Köhler. So Evans tries, but he's now on the outside. There's on a normal way, no chance to overtake.
Still side by side. We may actually miss the pass here because we'll be watching our leader going over the line just as these guys come into the Parabolica. But Leon Köhler has held on. He's going to be a man to watch as the rookie championship. Jackson Evans, the Porsche Junior for this year. But here is the man who is going to win the virtual edition of the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup for 2020. The first edition due to unprecedented circumstances, but Larry ten Voorde has done it. He has won the virtual edition of the Supercup. Second and pushed all the way by Ayhancan Guven, and third has gone the way of Leon Köhler ahead of Jackson Evans after a race-long battle. Richard Lietz runs in 7th position, defending from Jukka Honkavuori. This is the next big battle. Nick Tandy's managed to get past all of those as well, up into 6th position by the end. Behind Dylan Pereira, Lietz beats Honkavuori, beats Mawson, and Mawson therefore won't get his 4th in the championship. Simone Di Silvestro will come across the line in 10th spot. And all the way through the field, all the battles still happening. Into the Parabolica. This is Jesse Van Kuijke. Did such an important job in qualifying, providing a slipstream to Larry ten Voorde, compromised his whole day and comes over the line and does pick up a couple of points at the end, but really compromised all the way through. What entertainment! This is a battle for 15th, and still they go side by side. Love and Nacken, no love lost there between the two of them, and Love does beat Nacken even though the car looks knackered. That was, yeah, I'm getting a groan from my producer. That was awful, wasn't it? That's the kind of thing, that's the kind of magic you get from Martin Haven, to be honest. I learned it from him and David Addison. Over the line, the last of our runners. And it is Clément Mathieu who finishes down in 17th position. Plenty of retirements once again. Fabian Vulvend, Lorena, Jaap van Lagen disconnected. We didn't speak about Jaap, one of the best real-world races. But here is provisionally the results from our final race here in Monza. Larry ten Voorde beating Ayhancan Guven by 4 seconds in the end. Guven managing to find 2 seconds across the race. Leon Köhler and then Jackson Evans provided us with entertainment. Dylan Pereira dropped out into 5th after damage. Nick Tandy recovered to 6th. Richard Lietz, Jukka Honkavuori, Jerry Mawson only 9th. He'll be disappointed with that. Simone Di Silvestro inside the top 10. Jaden Conright, Christian Engelhardt, I think that may be his first finish. And then Jesse Van Kuijke 13th, Jordan Love 14th, Marius Nacken picking up the final point. Mark Sidney will win the Pro-Am Championship for 16th. Clément Mathieu 17th, last of the runners. Fabian Vulvend in 18th, Lorena. Jaap van Lagen disconnected 2 laps before the end. Then Simonhauser, Anderlecht, actually I think he dropped out for an internet issue. Lawrence Van Thor got a drive-through penalty and dropped out. Lindlau, then Fuminelli, Splunter and Fredriksson, Muller and Patrick Pile, I don't think even took the start. What a shame.
What a last
Monza.
2 races, isn't it?
Such entertainment, Jan. And what we would expect from a real world Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup race. But add in the virtual mix, some new names up at the front of the field that we are used to, some pros that maybe struggled a little bit further down the order, and some stories to tell when they do reconvene in July. Here is the replay of the start of race 1. Look at how aggressive Guven went. Did Guven approach this weekend correctly, Jan Seifert? Or was he perhaps a little bit too aggressive, considering he had the advantage coming into the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you say, he's always, when it comes to big pressure, and that's, as a leader in the championship, you have the pressure on you. He is doing mistakes, and we see that here. First, in race 1, with a start already here, you can see he was closing the gap, but a better start from Tenfjord, and he was pushing there, and you can see the aggressive driving style of Guven. Yeah, I mean, it was in his hands, and he lost it all. Good way from Tenfjord, because in the end, to be honest, Guven was the fastest guy, so he was the one to beat. But in the end, Tenfjord was just clever enough.
Credit to Larry Tenfjord there for not binning Guven into the wall, because he had a proper swapper on the grass, on the straight, accelerating, and he still managed to keep the car out of the tail of Guven, and both of them could have been easily in the wall.
Yeah, correct.
That was he was very, very lucky. Guven then at the end of that second race had an issue. He also had a horrible start in race 2.
Yeah, in race 2 it was even worse. To race number 1, he dropped back to 7th or 8th position, and then he was in a let's say carbon area. You see here, he couldn't do anything to avoid the crash into these guys, and then he lost another 2 places. Then also in second chicane, he was in the trouble. So and I think there he lost the race. So with the start and with the first 2 chicanes. Once you are in the middle of the field, you lose all your speed and all your you can see it here. I think he lost or he had no traction because of wheel spin at the start. Even.
And then, as you say, I love the phrase "the carbon zone" that you use, right in the middle of the pack. That is a dangerous place to be, and a little bit of contact, but actually that probably didn't damage his car too much. It did just enough, and he knew that he had to set off and set about chasing down the leader. By this point, the leader was already 5 seconds up the road from him. He had so much work to do. But for me, this was not where he lost the championship. He lost the championship by putting himself, and here's Tandy losing it in front of him, lucky to get away with that. He lost the championship at the end of race 1, putting himself down into 4th position after race 1, and giving himself all to do in the second race.
Yeah, correct. And and then it was easy for Tenfjord to bring it home, because he just had to do one job, and this is without crashing, bring it back home.
It'd be interesting to see and remind ourselves about that incident at the end of race 1. I can't remember exactly what happened, but by dropping from 2nd down to 4th position, or was it even the lead of the race, gave himself a points deficit for the first time in the championship, and that was it. Guy, you'll be able to watch Aycan Guven. He'll be racing as part of Porsche's lineup at Le Mans 24 Hours, but also in the IMSA series as well, representing him and Nick Tandy. He does still pick up 2nd position in the championship. But let's have a look at the points of the championship here. We pretty much know who has won the championship, because that was an easy bit of maths to do. But the rest of the maths, not quite so easy.
No, I think it's quite clear for everybody that Tenfjord won the championship. Also that Guven is 2nd. But behind these guys, it was really close to between Pereira, Köhler, and Mawson. I think it's it was a good first season. I would like to say first season to put a little pressure on Porsche to bring up another season, isn't it?
Absolutely. I really hope that we see this continue, perhaps in the winter, the virtual edition, whilst the Supercup is taking its winter break. Larry Tenfjord wins the championship ahead of Aycan Guven. by 14 points. Dylan Pereira in third spot, holds on to that third spot, and he has been third best throughout the year. He took a single victory at Spa, and he was in third position in both races in Barcelona and one race at Silverstone as well as here in the first race. Best rookie and fourth in the championship after that battle with Jackson Evans. Leon Köhler beating Joey Mawson to that fourth and therefore winning the rookie championship as well. Great battle with Jackson Evans in this one. And Leon would be one of those drivers who'll be flying his flag to be a Porsche Junior driver in the future if he could. Ayçen Guven and Jackson Evans for this season are those junior supported drivers.
Yeah, correct. And I mean, it was a good appetizer, let's say, for the real season, because these guys we saw here in front, they will be also the front runners for the real season, and also for the rookies, as Köhler won the rookie championship while Sini is champion in the Pro-Am. It's also these guys who will be the real front runners in these championships. And to be honest, I can't, as I say, I can't wait to go and see the guys racing all over the world.
Well, it has been a pleasure to finally commentate with you, Jan, after many years of knowing each other and finally being on a broadcast. Thank you for your expertise, not only, and maybe a lot of people don't know this, but not only because of your real world driving expertise, but so much virtual world expertise, both from an organizational point of view and driving point of view as well.
Thank you very much for the words, but also same to you. I mean, I really enjoyed that. But also, I would say a big thank you to everybody behind the cameras and or behind the PCs, let's say, and also to Porsche. So, and as I say, I hope to join you once again in another season.
Make sure that you tune in next week. This time next week will be the third round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Supercup, the esports version of what you have watched today with the best of the esports drivers in the world, including Max Verstappen. That will be this time next week with our producer today, Paul Smith, thank you very much, and Martin Haven. But from me, Ben Constanduras, and Jan Seifert, I hope you have enjoyed what we have brought you the last 4 weeks with these real-world drivers in the virtual world. Ayçen Guven has missed out on the championship. After issues today, Larry ten Voorde is your virtual edition champion. Congratulations to the Dutchman. See you again soon.